look at a one Ethiopian dollar note issued by the State
የማሳያችሁ
Bank of
በኢትዮጵያ
Ethiopia
የስቴት ባንክ
around
የታተመውን
1949.
የኢትዮጵያ
We
የአንድ
have a
ዶላር ፊት
profile
ለፊት
of
ገጽታ ነው።
Emperor
የታተመው
Haile
በ1949
Selassie,
ነው። ፊት ለፊት ገጹ
also
ላይ
known
የምናየው
as Ras
አጼ ኃይለ
Tefari
ሥላሴን ነው
Makonnen.
ወይም ደግሞ
He
ራስ
had many
ተፈሪ
grandiose
መኮንን።
titles, including
ሌላም እጅግ
Conquering
በጣም ብዙ
Lion
አይነት
of the
ስም
tribe
አላቸው።
of
ከነዚህ
Judah,
መካከል
King of
የነገደ
Kings,
ይሁዳ
Lord of
አልጋ ወራሽ፣
Lords,
ንጉሠ
and
ነገሥት፣
Master of
የጌቶች
God.
ጌታ እንዲሁም ስዩም እግዚአብሔር
These
የሚሉት
stem from
ይጠቀሳሉ።
tradition that
ይህ
the
በኢትዮጵያ
Ethiopian
ደንብ መሰረት
monarchs
ነገስታቱ
traced their
ዘራቸውን
line
ከንጉሥ
back to
ሰለሞንና
Menelik
ከንግሥተ
the
ሳባ ልጅ
Fourth,
ከሆነው
who was the
ምኒልክ
son
the
of
ፈርስት
Solomon and
እንደሚዋረሱ
the
ነው።
Queen of Sheba. Despite the titles indicating a near
ከማዕረጉ
divine status,
በተጨማሪ
Selassie
ንጉሠ
introduced
ነገሥት
the
አጼ
first
ኃይለ ሥላሴ
constitution of the country.
ለሀገሪቱ የመጀመሪያ የሆነውን
It
ህገ
provided
መንግስት
some
ጽፈዋል።
possibility
ይህ
for
ንጉሳዊ
more
ህገ
democratic
መንግስት
rule, but
ዴሞክራሲያዊ
still kept the
ህጎችን
power
ይዟል።
firmly in the hands of the
የንግስና መንበሩ ግን በንጉሳውያን ዘር
Juxtaposed with the
እንዲቀጥል
regal
ያደርጋል።
portrait, the central image is
ይህን
that
የአንድ
of
ብር
a
ኖት
farmer.
ስንመለከት መሀል ላይ የሀገሪቱ ዋልታና ማገር የሆነው ገበሬ በበሬ እያረሰ ይታያል። ከጀርባውም መንደሩ ይታያል። ከላይ ደግሞ ተራሮችና የሚንከባለል ደመና ይታያል።
The clouds look almost threatening.
የደመናው ማንዣበብ አስፈሪ ገጽታን ይፈጥራል። ከዛም ለግብርናው መሰረት የሆነው ዝናብ ይዘንባል።
And it can be no
ይህ
accident
የጃንሆይ
that the
ፎቶ
stoic image of the
ብሩ
emperor
ላይ
is placed
የታተመበት
as if
ምክንያት
watching
ስንመለከት
out over
በአባታዊ
the sea.
ጥበቃ የሀገሪቱ ዋልታና ማገር የሆነውን ገበሬ እየተመለከቱ እጠብቅሃለሁ የሚል
Despite
መልእክት
the fact that he
ያስተላልፋል።
controlled the country and one of the
ገበሬው
biggest
የሀገሪቱ
goals
የጀርባ
was to
አጥንት
establish
እንደመሆኑ
a
መጠን
currency
የንጉሠ
that they
ነገሥት
would
ዋነኛ
faithfully
ዓላማ
use.
የሚገበያይበት
Before
ታማኝ የገንዘብ
1945,
ስርዓት መፍጠር
many
ነበር።
different currencies
ከ1945 በፊት የተለያዩ ገንዘቦች ሀገሪቱ ውስጥ ተዘዋውረዋል። ከነዚህ መካከል የኦስትሪያ ዲዛይን የሆነው ማርትሬዛ ጠገራ ብር አንዱ ነበር። ይህ የወረቀት ገንዘብ የንጉሥ ቋንቋ የሆነውን አማርኛ ከላይና እንግሊዝኛን ከታች አካቷል። በአራቱም ማዕዘናት የገንዘብ ዋጋ ተጽፏል። ከታች ቀኝ ማዕዘን ላይ አንድ የኢትዮጵያ ዶላር፣ ከላይ የቀኝ ማዕዘን ላይ በአማርኛ አንድ የኢትዮጵያ ብር ተብሎ ተጽፏል። ይህ ገንዘብ በአማርኛ ብር ይባላል። ከጀርባው ደግሞ በሐምራዊ ቀለም ወሰብሰብ ያሉ መስመሮች ይታያሉ። የፀሐይን ነጸብራቅና ተስፋን ያመለክታሉ። በግራ በኩል በደብዛዛው በሚስጥራዊ ጽሑፍ የሀገሪቷን ሀብታምነት፣ የመሬቷን ሀብታምነት የሚገልጽ ጽሑፍ ተጽፏል። ዙሪያውን ደግሞ ከአሜሪካ ዶላር ጋር ተመሳሳይ የሆኑ እጅግ ደቃቅ ውስብስብ መረቦች ይታያሉ። የኢትዮጵያ ዶላር የሚታተመው አሜሪካ ውስጥ በሚገኘው የሴኩሪቲ ባንክ ካምፓኒ ውስጥ ነው።
Through a loan of 5.4 million ounces of silver, despite British interests attempting to force a currency based on the pound sterling. The Security Banknote Company left its mark beneath the state bank, and the governor or general manager of the bank, who was an American, signed the note. In this case, it was the second governor of the bank, Jack Bennett, who held the position from 1949 to 1953. The bank's signature and the image of the emperor helped guarantee the functional security of the note, but more was needed to protect it from counterfeit. The intricate engravings, as well as the serial number in red overstamp, are part of the security measures, as they make the note difficult to copy. But that's not really enough, and so many notes carry a watermark in the paper itself, visible only when backlit. This note does not have that feature, but it does have security dots. This is a technique where random dots of color appear on the note. At first, they look like water damage, but they are intentional. 2 blue dots are seen in the center of the note, and 1 red is up in the upper edge. So now, let's examine the reverse. The reverse of a note typically emphasizes the laws that authorize or protect it. In this case, however, we see very little text. Solely the Amharic for 1 Ethiopian birr. In fact, the legal underpinnings of the currency had not been completely established when the plates were made. Britain wanted the East African shilling, a currency based on the pound sterling and used in several British African colonies, to be the currency for Ethiopia. And so, the emperor essentially established the state bank without the British knowing, or rather he told them that the bank would not have the authority to issue or control currency, would only be a savings bank. Meanwhile, he asked the US for loans to make a national currency. By the time Britain found out, the loan was issued, the bank was operating, and they couldn't really stop it. The only image on the reverse, quite prominent in fact, is in the central oval. It is a crowned lion bearing a bannered staff with a cross at its upper end. Known as the Lion of Judah, this is a kind of coat of arms that has been in use since the 17th century at least. and it was on the national flag of Ethiopia from 1941 to 1974. It represents the conjunction of the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church, the people of Ethiopia, and the nation itself, with the crown representing the emperor. We also have intricate web-like designs covering the background in most places here on the reverse. In some areas, however, the design is formed of English words repeating in arcs. State Bank of Ethiopia. The color is entirely green on the reverse, and it appears that there was a bit of money-saving concern in printing the note. It is impressive overall, but without a watermark and with limited colors, it would be easier to print than many of the more elaborate currencies circulating in the world, even at the time. So what does this note tell us about Ethiopia in 1949, and how does that compare to what we know from history? The Italian army, under orders from Benito Mussolini, invaded Ethiopia in 1935 and declared Abyssinia, the Ethiopian Empire, a province of Italy in 1936. Haile Selassie went into exile and addressed the League of Nations for help. It did little to censure Italian interests, but with the outbreak of the Second World War, things began to change. Britain, mainly using South African colonial troops, liberated Ethiopia from the Italians in 1941. And Haile Selassie returned 5 years after his exile to begin anew. The Italians had of course brought in the Italian lira as the primary currency, but the people of Ethiopia didn't trust it or they didn't like to use it. So the Italians had to strike additional Maria Theresa thalers, a heavy silver coin, buying the dies from the Austrians. When Selassie returned, there were many different currencies in use, including some Italian lira, Egyptian pounds, Indian rupees, East African shillings, and of course the Maria Theresa thalers. He faced an uphill battle of consolidating currencies or creating one that would be acceptable and used by all. He entered into many negotiations with the British, but cleverly sidestepped them on many of their demands. The plan had initially been formulated in 1942 for a national currency. The British put this plan down, but the emperor continued to work on it in secret. In 1945, the currency was finally issued and called the dollar in translation, but the birr in Amharic. And to the British surprise, this new dollar was well accepted and eventually managed to supplant the other currencies in the country. Selassie did a lot to modernize Ethiopia. He was an anti-fascist icon and supporter of the League of Nations, despite its lack of assistance to him. He believed in the idea of mutual protection, and Ethiopia then became a charter member of the United Nations when it came into being in 1945. Though he was a supporter of many Western ideas, he actively pursued decolonization of Africa. He also supported the Orthodox Church, establishing the independence of Ethiopian bishops, though they remained a part of the Alexandrian Church. In fact, as indicated by the cross emblem at the end of the lion's staff on the back of the note, Ethiopia has a large Christian population. Over 60% reported their religion to be Christianity in a 2007 poll. But there were human rights problems under Selassie's reign as well. His constitution favored the nobility and the indisputable power of the monarch. This meant that commoners had little or no say in their government. Plus, there are many Muslims in the country, and in 1948, the government used violence to put down a peaceful Muslim protest. The note doesn't show any of this, and it wouldn't, since its job is to unite the people, not divide them. It attempts to show the emperor as overseeing his people's welfare and maintaining the strength and dignity of the nation, and it does give that impression. Whether it was true or not depends on your perspective. I hope you enjoyed looking at this banknote with me. I'm Dr. Brad Hafford.